reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
All right, what's going on, everybody? It is Pushing the Limits on a Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. Plenty to get to today. You could be watching on the Washington Press Network, Occupy Democrats Network, the personal YouTube page at PTL Radio Show, the FMAM dial, KSHP coming out of Las Vegas, Nevada. We appreciate you being here. Of course, my website, pushingthelimits.live. So, a lot to get to today, as there was a lot to get to yesterday, and I'm sure there'll be a lot to get to tomorrow. I had an opportunity to speak with George Santos. We're going to play that for you coming up here in just a little bit. Obviously, more hearings in D.C. We're covering what took place yesterday, of course, with Pam Bondi. This week, we had Pete Hegseth in D.C., and some more interesting stories to get to. Mel Gibson, among others, will be special ambassadors to Hollywood. Donald Trump announcing that today as well. So much to get to, right? So much to talk about. As anyone who listens to this show knows, I like speaking to people that have different perspectives, particularly people that are eloquent in speaking their opinions and backing it up with some facts. And they're few and far between these days, let me tell you. But this gentleman has been on the show before. He is certainly one of those people. He is senior counsel to the Article 3 project, and I appreciate him coming back on the program. Will Chamberlain joining us. Will, I appreciate you being here, my friend. How are you?
Good to see you, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, busy, right? A lot of news to talk about with you.
Yeah.
A lot going on this week. It seems like ever since Donald Trump originally took office in 2016, every day is a busy news day. Let's start with something maybe a little more lighthearted, then we could get to more serious stuff. I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on Donald Trump announcing today that Mel Gibson, among others, will be special ambassador to Hollywood? Obviously, this is a guy with a very checkered past, with openly using the N-word, anti-Semitic statements he had made in the past. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is a good idea, bad idea?
I just don't care. I'm sorry. I don't care about what this is a fake position. Envoy to Hollywood. Hollywood's not a country. It's not a real ambassadorship. So whatever. I don't care.
I understand that. A lot of people. No, I hear you. A lot of people would have that opinion, and I understand that. All right, so we can move on to some actual real positions. Why don't we do that, Will?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Pam Bondi to start.
Sure.
I watched it as you did yesterday. I want to get your thoughts on it. What was troubling to me is that she wouldn't admit that Trump lost the 2020 election. I thought that was very bizarre. And then when asked about Donald Trump's statements about pardons, particularly January 6ers, she said she wasn't familiar with certain statements. What are your thoughts on that, Will?
Well, I mean, the first is obviously an attempt to create, essentially to create distance between Trump and Bondi, right? Well, that's the whole point of that question, because Trump doesn't say, he won't say that he lost 2020, and so you're trying to get Bondi to say so. And I thought Bondi's answer was diplomatic. Obviously, Joe Biden is the president. But she's not, I mean, it's like, not something she needs to do. It's not relevant to her job. And so I think this is like a sort of, it's a Democrat gotcha question, like, like we're showing you, we want you cabinet appointment to like embarrass yourself, either, somehow like do something that pisses off our base or create distance between you and Trump. So like, I think her answer, she had a very good moment at one point when Dick Blumenthal from Connecticut said to her, like, you have to be willing to answer this question. She's like, no, I don't. Actually, I don't have to answer your question. I have to get confirmed. And I am not going to just like jump through your rhetorical hoops the way you want me to jump through them to create talking points for you. So
I agree with you. Obviously, she doesn't have to answer anything. From my perspective, Will, the reason why she wouldn't answer the question is because I think she does not want a riff with Donald Trump. She knows who won. You know who won. Mm-hmm. I know who won. We could all say, well, there were issues. Okay, fine. No problem. I think the concern that I have, and you could tell me what you think about this, is if she doesn't want to answer the question, whether it's a gotcha question or not, if she doesn't want to answer the question because she doesn't want to anger Donald Trump, then one could make a correlation to if Donald Trump does something against the law or somebody close to him does, she won't want to upset him there either. I know some people might consider that a stretch, but why not just say, yeah, Trump lost? Is it really a big deal? I mean, that's the part
I think we've had quite enough of the Department of Justice's independence, frankly. Like, I think that I that's not how our Constitution works, right? That it is people assume that it's based on how the media talks about it, that the structure of our government is that the Department of Justice is independent. And it's just wrong. It's not true. The Department of Justice is a constituent part of the executive branch, reporting to the President of the United States, who has the constitutional duty to ensure that take care that the laws be faithfully executed. And so this attempt, I think that Bondi is right to refuse outright to answer questions that create distance between herself and the president. I think that's the right move on her part. And I think it reflects what the Department of Justice should be going forward, because I think if we take a 30,000-foot view of what the first Trump term was like, where if you did have an independent Department of Justice, right? Jeff Sessions effectively recused himself out of the Russiagate scandal. And I mean, in many ways, the Department of Justice was at war with its own president. I think that's a reasonable way to characterize what happened in the first term. I don't think that helped the country. I think it completely, was a complete mire for the administration. It thwarted the workings of the executive branch. It drained the energy and the finances of everybody working in the Trump administration. And I am and I understand that this is a broader precedent for both Republicans and Democrats, but I think it is, I think it's really a good idea, like whatever direction obviously the president's not above the law, but like the Department of Justice in that first term went way too far in the direction of we are independent and can do with the president what we want to do, and the president doesn't have meaningful control or direction over us. No, I think we need to go well back in the other direction. I think we need to be leaning on impeachment as the remedy to unlawful behavior by the president, and not expecting the Department of Justice to go against its own president. I think that's that's my view of it. So I think that's once I have that macro view, I suddenly look at Bondi's answering questions in a different light, not like, oh, is she demonstrating her independence from the president, but rather I think it's a plus that she's saying, no, I'm loyal to the president. Like DOJ will be. DOJ is not pulling. It's not 2016 anymore. DOJ is not pulling the stunts that it pulled. In that
I hear you. I just don't want the DOJ to be loyal to the president. I want the DOJ to be loyal to the Constitution, and I think you would agree with me on that. One more Pam Bondi question, and then we can move on to Pete Hegseth. When she's asked about January 6th, particularly those who attacked police officers that are in jail right now, not even referring to Donald Trump's statements about pardons, why not just say, hey, you know what? If you're prosecuted and you physically assaulted police officers, I'm not getting involved there. We're not going to make those pardons. Why not just make a generic statement like that, which I would have been totally okay with? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, ultimately, a few reasons. Reason one, it's not her responsibility ultimately to make pardons. That's on the president. It's his sole power. So she doesn't want to, again, not create distance, not get out ahead of him. It's ultimately, these are going to be his decisions. Two, in the individual cases, obviously she's going to want to reserve judgment. Like it's sort of an extension of the Ginsburg rule. I mean, she put in place a rule, which I think is very sensible, when she was for her confirmation hearings, when she was going to get to the Supreme Court. I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals, right? Because who knows what could happen. And I don't want to bind myself with my answers to questions about how I might resolve a future case. That's not good judging. It's not fair to the litigants. Similarly, I think that her, having a default rule for a prosecutor being like, I'm not going to answer hypotheticals about how I will wield the power in individual cases, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. And I think finally, she did in fact say, like, I don't have any time for people who beat up cops. Right? Like there was,
I would hope not.
Right? Like who does, right? And so I think that. And that's actually a pretty consistent message coming out of the Trump administration. It's not just her, it's J.D. Vance too, right? Like I expect you'll see a lot of.
I heard J.D. Vance say that, Will. You're right. Yeah, J.D. Vance said something I absolutely agree with. If you assaulted police officers, you shouldn't be pardoned. J.D. Vance, I agree with you. I just wish the leader of the Republican Party would make a similar statement. Let's look into some cases where you might think that people were overcharged. They shouldn't be behind bars. I don't have a problem with that at all. But I agree with J.D. Vance. And I think we all agree here that if you assaulted a police officer that day and you committed some very violent acts and you were charged with it and you were found guilty, I don't want those people to be pardoned, whether it's a Black Lives Matter protest or January 6th. I don't care.
We all agree. I agree with that. I don't see a reason to be pardoning people.
I just wish Donald Trump would say that clearly, which he hasn't. He's made very generic statements, which I think confuses some people. But I agree with you, and I agree with J.D. Vance on that statement. All right, let's talk. If you're just joining us, by the way, he's Will Chamberlain, senior counsel for the Article 3 project. Okay, so Will, let's talk a little bit about Pete Hegseth. A lot of people have been talking about Pete Hegseth. There are millions. I respect his service, right? I know you do as well. There are millions of people that have served that I think would be more qualified than him. We can get into his checkered past. We don't have to dive deep into it, but I think it's very troubling from a decision-making perspective. Cheated on your first wife with your second wife. Cheated on your second wife with a Fox News coworker. Had a child with her. Cheated on your third wife. A lot of, I don't know whether he's an alcoholic or not, so I don't even want to talk about that. But the fact that he ran a business into the ground already with less than 100 people, that's also troubling. Am I wrong in being
troubled? That's not my understanding of what happened with that business at all. I mean, I have a colleague, Mark Lucas. This is a concerned Veterans for America. I don't believe. Yeah, I'm pretty. In my understanding with Mark, who was a high-level official of the Concerned Veterans of America, before he came to the Article 3 project, he said Pete did a wonderful job and was very competent, and and that their organization was actually very effective. I mean, it was primarily like a policy advocacy organization on behalf of veterans. They got a few big pieces of legislation passed, is my understanding. So I think this reporting, this certainly on that front, I just don't think it's true. I think it's just wrong. That's like a smear. As for his personal conduct in his marriage, I don't think that's anything to admire. Obviously, I don't think he would say it's anything to admire. But at the same time, what's good for the goose is good for the gander here, guys. I mean, Tim Kaine made a huge deal out of that during his speech in the confirmation hearings.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, 3 months ago, he was on the campaign trail gleefully hamming it up with Doug Emhoff, who impregnated his nanny and forced her to get an abortion while married.
No, I saw that. I saw you tweet about that. I wanted to actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to ask you about that. So obviously, as you know, Doug's not in any administration.
Sure.
Doug's not running for, Doug's not going to have the nuke codes. We all know that there's only two people in this country that would be Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump. So, as far as Doug's past, sure, he has a checkered past with women. I don't think any reasonable person would deny that, but he's also not running for Secretary of Defense, right?
Yeah, but I mean, he's the first, he's still also, he'll be in the White House. He would be the first husband, right? And
right.
That's
could have been the first husband.
That's
right.
a hugely influential position. And you're putting somebody who's, voluntarily in a marriage with that. I can't, I'm sorry, the left's, the way that the left treated all this stuff, and this isn't new. This has been going on for decades. This is all the way back to Bill Clinton, who was credibly accused of rape, right? What's good for, I'm sorry, I can't take the Democrats seriously on this front as the arbiters of moral.
Right. I can only speak. I hear you, Will, and this is why I wanted you on to talk about this. I don't defend Bill Clinton. I would never vote for Bill Clinton. I'm going to say this on the record. I believe Bill Clinton in his life has done some very bad things to women. I certainly would not deny that. Okay. I also did not vote for Hillary. That wasn't the reason why. There were other reasons, but I just don't think Pete Hegseth is a good guy. His own mother called him a woman abuser. Now I understand years later, she goes on Fox News and cleans it up. She never denied that he never abused women. She said he's a different man now. So my question to you is, why is it all of a sudden Donald Trump chooses him to be his Secretary of Defense and then he finds God? Why is it people find Jesus and they all of a sudden find God like they lost their wallet and they found
I don't
their
think
wallet?
I don't think that's an accurate characterization of Hegseth's religious kind of. I'm not a religious person myself, so I don't.
Neither am I. Neither am I. Right.
But it seemed like it. I'll take his newfound awakening seriously. I don't think it's I didn't start this year. It seems like the conduct that was in question was something like 2017, 2016, I don't know, something like that.
It was years ago. Yep.
That's a long time ago. So I give him credit. I think it seems like he's been happily married, and the conduct that he was engaged in 7-8 years ago has stopped. Good for him. And here's the other thing. I'll say this about Hegseth too. And I think in the confirmation hearing, one of the things you saw was he does have a lot of talent, right? Like the guy's very, very articulate, very, very smart. In great physical condition, which I think is a good thing for somebody who's the Secretary of Defense. Like, I think there's something to be said for the guy who's running our military and expects the standards all the way down the line to be held up, for that guy to be capable of cranking out 250 push-ups in a morning. That's a good thing.
He's in good physical condition. I certainly, he's not very good at throwing axes. I think we all can agree on that. He's not very good at that. All right, let me bring this up because I also find this interesting, right? As you know, he said on a podcast in the past that he did not want women to be on the battlegrounds, right? Which I find repulsive. I think it's absurd what he said back then. All of a sudden,
specifically in combat,
right? Correct. Specifically in combat, which I absolutely disagree with. There are some tough women out there that are much stronger than me. Now, all of a sudden, he changes his tune. All of a sudden, when Donald Trump chooses him, he goes from, I don't want women serving on the battlefield in combat to, I'm open to it now because he has a meeting with this female Republican who was not going to vote for him. And now all of a sudden is because he changes his mind. I'm not buying it. I think the only reason why he changed his mind is so he can get affirmed. That's my opinion. Where am I wrong?
Politics. Welcome to politics. Sometimes you come in with a set of beliefs,
right?
And you're told that, if in order to, you're going to have to make some compromises along the way. I mean, I disagree with your premise, at least when it comes to frontline combat roles. I don't think it's appalling to suggest that, at least with frontline, infantry and artillery roles, that, a flat ban on women is probably unnecessary. But the number of women in the country who could probably meet, say, for example, the Navy SEALs fitness standards and would have the willingness to do it. Like, if you actually understand what those standards are and and combine that with the willingness to do it, the number of women we're talking about is probably single digits.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
Right? And that might be, it might be small single digits. We're talking like 1 or 2 women in the country who might be.
Well, I don't know if it would be that small. I'm not an export, but I don't disagree with you that there would be more men that would be able to be qualified.
I guess the analogy would be, think about one of there's 2 big sports analogies that I like to bring up in these conversations, right? The first is the fact that, the under 15 men's soccer team, like an under 15 club team, beat the women's national soccer team.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And when there's this also the example of when Serena Williams and Venus Williams challenged
absolutely
top 300 tennis player and got smacked around 6-1-6-2. Right. Like, so there's sort of the gap, especially at the top level, between men and women. Like, once you start is extremely dramatic. And so yes, there's much, there's women much stronger than you or I. I don't
disagree with you. That's why you don't see any women that are playing in men's professional sports because they don't have the abilities to do so. And I would welcome it if they want to try. But all I'm simply saying, and I think we sort of agree, is that there are probably some, might be few, but some women out there that could pass those challenges. And if they're willing to serve this country honorably and risk their life, then I don't see any reason if they can pass those standards to do so. And I didn't like his comments on that podcast. And but I think we agree as a whole. And I don't disagree with your sports analogies at all. I talk about that all the time. It's why I don't think that transgender women should have any place playing with naturally born women on the playing field. I think it's absurd. And even though there are only 10 or 15 college athletes that are trans women, over 6,000 athletes. It's still wrong, right? And I don't think.
And the funny thing is, actually, there's an interesting. I know we're a little sidetracked, but there's an interesting. How one single trans athlete in women's volleyball completely collapsed like the entire conference's volleyball schedule. I don't know if you remember that, but it's like
I do. Are you talking about San Jose State?
San Jose State, right? It's like every single team that conceded and was like, no, we're not going to play with this person. It's actually dangerous for us, right? This person's spiking a volleyball in our face.
I don't disagree with you, and this is where I agree with Republicans on this issue. And by the way, most Democrats, I think, probably agree with us, right? There might be a small percentage that don't.
I think this is an 80-20 issue. I think you find the hardcore left would disagree, but most.
I think most of us agree on this. But let me ask you a question. Just as we agree on this issue, I think what Nancy Mace is, and I know we're kind of getting on a tangent here, but I think it's a good conversation. I think what Nancy Mace is doing, tweeting hundreds of times about a female colleague using a female restroom, and talking more about those issues than gun
Not
violence.
female, right? Male, but you trans.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about someone who is born male,
Yeah.
transitioned to a female, whatever. Listen, I
Mhm.
consider a man if he's born a man. I consider a woman if she's born a woman. But I will still call you he, she, because I don't care. I will
Mhm.
respect you, and I don't know why people care about that, but Nancy Mace sees this as such a threat. And my argument is, show me evidence that a trans person in a bathroom is more likely to commit a crime than anybody else. There's no evidence to back that up. Now, I know she says, well, it makes me uncomfortable. Guess what? There's a lot of things in life that make us uncomfortable. It doesn't mean we should ban people for doing things. And I get frustrated with somebody like a Nancy Mace, because when it healthcare, gun control, thoughts and prayers, one tweet, let's move on to the next. But when it comes to women in trans women in bathrooms, she's literally still talking about it. It's been like 2 months.
I mean, she wants to make it her pet issue. I think it's a reasonable thing to do. Honestly, I'm sympathetic to women who say that we fought a long time for female-only spaces and a variety of contexts, and suddenly we're going to give them back. I mean, I think the proper way to evaluate the trans rights movement is it's the most successful male rights movement in American history. It's the one movement that has the effect of eviscerating many of the protections that women benefited from for many years. So I don't begrudge her doing that. And I think, so the funny thing is, you mentioned this thing where it's like you're like, okay, you believe in the biological binary, but then when you want to be polite to people and respect them by their pronouns, which that is actually the position I used to approach it with. I don't do that anymore. I've actually affirmatively changed my mind to say, like, this request for politeness is actually 95% of the time the sort of tip of the spear for in essentially assessment that you ought agree with my political viewpoint on this question. And so I think that
I guess for me, I just really don't care. It doesn't affect me. I would ask you, like, how does that affect you negatively in your life?
I mean, the cultural things, like, you see this starting to happen. You see it happen dramatically in Canada, and then starting to happen in places like California, which is essentially the states enforcing affirming gender and affirming gender parenting. So, they're trying to do this. They actually did try to do this in California. I think they might have passed it, which says that, if there's a divorce and there's a question about custody, judges should weigh which parent is affirming their child's gender and determining who to award custody to. I think it's appalling, right? I think that's the state getting in there and actively encouraging and putting their
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that either.
I think that the right, and also I think that, underlying the concession there is a concession that this notion of gender is meaning and carries weight. And I think that as a society, we ought to be pushing the notion that you are quite correct that gender, as you've defined it, is a social construct, which is why we're going to ignore it, right? We're going to ignore whatever you're like. You think you're a woman. That's fascinating. You're obviously biologically female, so we're going to call you. We don't care what you've invented for personality for yourself. That's not going to dictate how others interact with you. So
people don't. Yeah, you don't have to call somebody or he or she. I would never say that you have to do that. Just from my personal standpoint, I don't care.
The thing is, like, that's a goal of the trans movement. They want to get to that point. They did it. They were pretty close, darn close in Canada. And so I think it's, I was open to this, and then it is amazing. It's like one of those things where you think, oh, this slope is, slippery slope's a fallacy, right? Wrong. Actually, a lot of slopes are slippery. This one turned very, very slippery in about a 5-year period where, it went from, oh, you should probably be polite to what's your objection to like males bashing in women's skulls?
Well, I guess, what are we going to do, though? Are we just going to check what's in everybody's pants going into a women's restroom? I think you would agree with me. There are some trans women you cannot tell based on just seeing somebody walking around, whether they're a man or a woman. So do we just make assumptions about people? Do we ask people to take their pants down, which obviously I would never want to?
I don't think anybody's saying that they need to take their pants down. I'm sure someone can figure out a more elegant enforcement mechanism if one becomes necessary.
I don't know how would you do that? How would you do that?
Like, but I think you just you start with social. But that's actually a good answer to, like, why social opprobrium? Why should we I think one way is just to say, as a society, we think this is silly, and we're not, and so no, I'm not calling you by your pronouns, right? And anybody who tries to correct me on your pronouns, you just
people are entitled to do that. I wouldn't take that right away from anybody. I guess
I get that, but it's I think people ought, right? I affirmatively have changed my mind. I'm saying I think it is the right thing for society for people to reject others' attempts to impose preferred pronouns on them.
I hear you, Will. I think there's a lot of things that are right for society that people don't do. For example, I don't want to tell all women what to do with their own bodies, especially those that are raped or victims of incest. And my problem with so many on the far right is they're so hung up on this issue, like a Nancy Mace. But when it comes to, in some states in this country, almost half the states in this country, abortion's illegal. Okay. And then in some of those states, there's no exceptions. I think that's sick. And I think that's far more sick than what anybody thinks about, who's going into bathrooms. We're going to force a woman that's raped to have a child. We're going to force a woman that's been the victim of incest to have that child. I think that's sick. And another one of my issues is, a lot of people, not you, but a lot of people talk about drag queen reading, about how the sky is falling. And I ask these people, all right, can you name me a child that's ever been killed with drag queen? Of course they can't, right? They claim all these children are being indoctrinated. Well, I understand that. They're saying that children are being indoctrinated, but I never hear far-right Republicans say, don't go to church. Thousands of kids have been victims of horrible sex crimes in churches, but I never hear Republicans say, don't go to church.
Public schools. I mean, I'm not a religious person, so I'm an awkward defender of people of faith, but I'll still do it here. I think that yes, young churches and schools are the first primary places where people who are interested in using kids look to. I don't think that's a reason to abolish public schools necessarily. There might be a reason to public schools. I don't think that might be the one.
I'm not saying that either, for the record. Right. I'm not saying we should abolish church or schools. All I'm simply saying is they want to abolish drag queen reading. And I've never heard of one story of a child that was dramatically changed for the rest of their life by listening to a drag queen read a book to them. But yet I never hear them talk about church and the thousands of kids that were molested.
I cannot fathom the mindset of someone who wants to dress up in what I think is a fundamentally sexual costume and read to children. I think it's bizarre. I'm sorry. I can't be sympathetic. I'm not sympathetic to Drag Queen Story Hour. I think it's a bizarre performance. I think parents shouldn't bring their kids to that sort of thing.
But Will, you know what I would say to that? If you have kids, I don't know if you do. If you do, don't bring them to drag queen reading then.
Right. But it's also do we open up it so that children can go buy pornography?
No, that's illegal.
It's obviously illegal. That's right. Illegal. But I understand it's a sliding scale a little bit, but those two are closer than maybe I think,
well, drag queen shows
corrupting the youth and preserving children's innocence, preserving their exposure to sexual content is something that I think we
I hear what you're saying,
and we don't have a libertarian perspective.
I hear what you're saying, Will, but drag queen reading to kids, there's nobody taking their clothes off. At least that would be against the law. Drag queen shows are 18 and over and 21 and over, and I agree with you. No young children should ever be anywhere near that. I'm with you 100% when it comes to that. When it comes to pornography, all I'm saying is, we live in we're supposed to live in a free country, right? If parents want to bring their kids to drag queen reading, I went to one of those because I wanted to see what it was all about. Yeah. The one I went to in Las Vegas was nothing sexual at all. Kids were eating, they were having fun. The only message I heard was be happy with who you are. And I don't think that's pushing anything on anybody. Now, if your position is, hey, I wouldn't want to bring my kids to that, I would never take that right away from you. I don't think anybody should be forced to take their kids to drag queen reading. I just wish that some people would be more focused on more issues that maybe are more prevalent to children.
I think there are more important issues out there, obviously. I wouldn't say this is my number one or my number two or my number 10. Right.
But, so what would you say to Nancy Mace then, that's tweeted about it 500 times in the last month?
She's a representative. She gets to pick her issues, and this one actually is relevant to her personally because she, there's suddenly a trans person in the House that is trying to use her bathroom, and she really doesn't like it. And she's like, no, okay, I understand. And it's it's a House rules issue. It's not it's actually tangible for her in this context. So I understand why she's focused on it.
Understood. Go ahead. Sorry if I interrupted.
No, I was finished my point.
Cool. So Will, last question I want to talk to you about was Israel, if that's okay. And I know I've kept you a little past the time here. I apologize. So a lot of people are giving credit to Joe Biden. I think that's fair. The fact that the Trump administration and the Biden administration have worked together, I think, is a good thing for the country. It's a good thing for the hostages. What are your thoughts on this issue? Do you think it's fair to give credit to Joe Biden since he put the framework in place here back in May? And the fact that the Trump administration, they're working together, I think that's a good thing.
I mean, to a degree, I think that, the Biden administration owns a lot of the failure to get these hostages out because its fundamental mistake was their inability they kept having people put distance between themselves and Israel publicly. Like, I think of something like Kamala Harris not going to Netanyahu's State of the Union speech, and then the constant attempt by the State Department to sanction settlers, and they're just doing all these things to create public distance between themselves and the Israeli government. And the end effect of that, I mean, Tony Blinken admitted this in a New York Times podcast last week, was to Hamas pulled away from the negotiating table. They're like, who cares about the Palestinians? Israel's losing its legitimacy. Let's just keep fighting. And I think that was, really quite silly. So I think in many ways, the Biden administration, the fact that this is happening 5 days before inauguration, is the best analogy is what happened when Reagan came into power and the hostages were released. I don't think anybody gave Carter much credit for the hostage release then, and I don't think people should really be giving much credit to Biden for the hostage release now. I think the more interesting question is whether or not, Trump is actually forcing Israel to take a deal that's not in its best interest. And I think that there's actually I think that's where the interesting critique may lie, because Israel is, if the terms of the deal I'm seeing are accurate, Israel's releasing something like 30 criminals for every hostage they're getting back. And if I was an Israeli, I would be very, very angry about that, because I know the consequences of that will be more, the likelihood is that ultimately more Israeli soldiers and people will either die or be kidnapped again as a result of releasing these people. I mean, you remember Yahya Sinwar, leader of Hamas, was released by Israel in the Gilad Shalit deal, where they gave up 1,000 criminals to get one Israeli soldier back. And I think in general, but that's, ultimately, I think, maybe you blame Trump for that, but also maybe you blame Netanyahu, maybe you blame the Netanyahu government, maybe you say maybe you blame the Israeli people for being.
I'm not a Benjamin Netanyahu fan, but I did have criticism for Donald Trump when 5,000 Taliban terrorists were released as part of that Afghanistan withdrawal. And listen, Joe Biden made plenty of mistakes. I also think Donald Trump made a lot of mistakes. I think we could point fingers both ways, but I think we also could both agree, no matter who is, and the deal might not have been a very good one for Israel. I'm not doubting what you're saying at all, but obviously it's a good thing to get these hostages freed. Maybe the deal wasn't a good deal, but to get these hostages back to their families is a wonderful thing. So I do appreciate the Biden and the Trump administration working together, even though the deal might have not been a good one. You might be very right on that one. But I don't know. Will. Donald Trump said that the war is going to be over in 24 hours in the Ukraine. I know he says a lot of ridiculous things that don't always come to fruition, but he did say that. So now he's taken over a mess in the Ukraine, a mess in the Middle East, and we'll see what he does with it. And then we'll talk to you about it, right?
Sure.
Will, always a pleasure. Senior counsel for Article 3 Project. Always a good conversation with you, Will. And I really do appreciate you taking the time once again to come on, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Will Chamberlain, everybody. Always a good conversation with him. And he's one of those people that I obviously don't agree with him on a number of issues, but he speaks to his points. He gives his reasons why he feels the way he feels. Smart guy. Those are the conversations that I really enjoy having with people. I don't really enjoy talking with people that I agree on everything with. I also don't all the time enjoy having screaming matches with people that I disagree with. Will's a smart guy. He gives his points. I give mine. And then we let everybody else decide. And those are truly the interviews that I enjoy the most. I do want to bring up Mel Gibson real quickly, if I may. I didn't really want to get into this with Will. Donald Trump said today, "It is my honor to announce John Voight, Mel Gibson, and Sylvester Stallone to be special ambassadors to a great but very troubled place, Hollywood, California." Now, I understand this is kind of a made-up position, and I also understand that it's very low on the totem pole. But I want to remind everybody who Mel Gibson is. This is the guy who openly used the N-word. Don't know if he still uses it now. He certainly used it years ago. This is a guy who is self-admitted at the time anti-Semite. And this is the guy who pled no contest to beating his wife at the time. So, this is the guy who Donald Trump once said is a good man. Have a listen to Mel Gibson's past.
You need medication.
I need one. I don't need medication. You need a bat in the side of the head. How about that?
Mel Gibson just said to his mother of his child at the time, you need a bat to the side of the head. Donald Trump is appointing him as an ambassador to represent a group of people. Oh, it gets worse if you forgot about who Mel Gibson is.
You are hitting a woman with a child in her hands. What kind of man is that? Hitting a woman when she's holding a child in her hand, breaking her teeth twice in the face. What kind of man is that?
You're all angry now.
You're going to get to, you know what? You're going to answer. One day, boy, you're going to answer.
Yeah, I'll put you in a rose garden, you understand that? Because I'm capable of it. You understand that?
What a really good ambassador to represent maybe other wife beaters and racists. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm playing this because we cannot forget who Mel Gibson really is. And I don't care, maybe he found Jesus. I could care less.
So that's why I'm so angry, because I don't have any friends. The career is over.
Really sounds like a great guy, right? Now, some might say he had alcohol problems back then. He had substance abuse issues back then. He's a changed man now. Maybe he found God. Here's what Donald Trump had to say about Mel Gibson.
I think Mel Gibson is a very good guy.
Yeah. Anyone who says Mel Gibson is a really good guy is probably the same person who says Donald Trump is a really good guy. Let me tell you something. Being drunk is not an excuse for being a racist. Being drunk is not an excuse for being an anti-Semite. Being drunk is not an excuse to physically assault the woman in your life or women in your life. That's who Mel Gibson is, and I believe the truth comes out when you're drunk. Some people are happy drunks. They're very friendly. Usually that persona of a person is a very kind-hearted, happy person. Then there are angry drunks like Mel Gibson. They have anger inside. And then there are just racist drunks and bigoted drunks. They're usually bigoted and racist in nature to begin with, and they just keep that on the inside. That's exactly who Mel Gibson is. His feelings on black people, his feelings on Jews, that's who Mel Gibson is. That hasn't just left his body. That wasn't because of drinking. Now, maybe he's not an alcoholic anymore, so he can't publicly display his bigotry, but there's no doubt in my mind he's still a bigot. And yes, Donald Trump thinks he's a wonderful human being. I mean, it's sick to me and it's disgusting. The fact that he would choose a guy like a Mel Gibson to be an ambassador to anything speaks volumes to me as to who Donald Trump is and the types of people he wants around him. So, as some of you that follow me on social media, you'll know that I go into these MAGA spaces from time to time. And by the way, a space that I went in the other day was not necessarily a MAGA space. It's a lot of nice people in this space that gave me the opportunity to speak. And all of a sudden, George Santos pops in. Now, listen. George Santos has a very checkered past. He's not a violent criminal, but he's alleged to have stolen money from his own donors, the lies and the speculation and basically the mistruths. I'm Jewish and so many other weird lies about being on a volleyball team and going to these universities he never went to. The man is constantly lied to get into office. And he's faced some very serious criminal charges. I've always wanted to talk to George Santos, though. We had a very respectful conversation. The people in the space seem to be very fascinated by it because usually in a space, if there's a well-known figure in the room, you maybe get one question, you maybe get 2 or 3 minutes. They gave me a lot longer than that. And I tried to hold George Santos's feet to the fire, but he actually was very respectful to me. So I was very respectful to him. And I wanted to play you part of that conversation I had with him. So with that being said, here is the conversation that I had with George Santos. And we talked about conspiracy theories and Nancy Mace. After this, we'll be taking some phone calls because I'm getting a lot of messages from people. They want to call in. We'll get there. But we'll go in and out here in this conversation. Here's what I had to say to George Santos and some of his responses.
Hey, Brian. I'm going to mute myself, actually.
Hey.
I'm here, George.
What's up? What's up, everybody? So I have a question for George, a few comments and a question, if I may. Hello, everybody. I'm wondering, George, what do you make of the misinformation and the conspiracy theories that seem to happen every single time we have a tragedy? For example, New Orleans, it was a migrant. It was the Joe Biden's open border policies. And then after, these fires, and they're still taking place now, I'm sure you'd agree with me. It's a tragedy, right? It's terrible. I agree with what you guys were talking about earlier about how people should be, doing something to help those that are in need. And all I hear, not you, I'm not talking about you particularly, but there's a lot of people on Twitter, as you know, All they care about is clicks, because clicks equal money, and they're not doing a damn thing to help people in California. And then I look at those who call themselves, Republicans, who call, Hollywood elitist, right? Well, what about people like Sean Penn, who are dedicating their time and their money? People like Jay Leno. The stories are endless. Angelina Jolie opening up her home to strangers that she doesn't even know. There's a lot of people doing
Mel
a lot of
Gibson.
good things. Right. Well, there are a lot of people that are doing a lot of good things, and I don't care whether they're a Republican or a Democrat, but all I'm saying is the conspiracy theories drive me crazy. I don't like it. And I know, George, you're a big Trump supporter. All that aside, why can't he just say, man, I really care for these victims. Let's raise some money. Let's talk about the victims. I get it. You want to play politics and you want to talk about Gavin Newsom. Fine. You want to criticize Newsom. That's fine. But why not also talk about the victims and do something instead of just people sitting on their ass and, calling him Gavin Newscum? That's not going to, regardless of what you think about Gavin Newsom, that's not going to help the families right now. There are people that are dying. There are people that don't have homes. And George, I don't think that's leadership. And we heard from Republicans. Why doesn't Joe Biden go to New Orleans? The day
All
of
right,
that.
let George respond.
Who just asked me all of this?
Also,
Who
pushing
just asked me
limits.
this?
Who just
Yeah,
asked
my
me?
name is Brian. I do a radio show, George, and
Who just asked me all of that? George is like, wait a second. I'm being asked difficult questions. I'm being challenged. See, George is used to being coddled when he goes into these spaces, because many of these spaces that he goes into, there are a bunch of huge MAGA Trump supporters and they love George. I go in there. He doesn't know who I am, which is the way I like it. I go in. Who's asking me all these questions? Well, I'm the one who's asking you all these questions. Answer them, but I think he was taken a little aback. But anyway, I'll continue to play it. Here we go.
help the families right now. There are people that are dying. There are people that don't have homes. And George, I don't think that's leadership. And we heard from Republicans. Why doesn't Joe Biden go to New Orleans? The day
All
of
right,
that.
let George respond.
Who just asked me all of
Also,
this? Who
pushing
just asked me
limits.
this?
Yeah, my name is Brian. I do a radio show, George, and
Okay, you're
yeah,
passionate
yep.
for sure. I can feel it.
Hey,
Well, I mean, people are dying.
Hey, Brian.
People are dying, George. Yeah.
Hey, Brian. My name is Marty. I'm from
Who's
I live
this
in
guy?
Oregon right now. I lived in
Marty,
Paradise.
let George reply.
Yeah, please
What's
shut
that?
up. Shut up.
Can you let George reply, please?
Yes.
Go ahead, George.
So Brian, to your point, I operate very different than most in the Republican Party, not because I'm trying to be special. It's just the way I'm built, right? I'm a more compassionate person. I am softer, if we're gonna put that on the scale, right? That's what I'm accused of being. You're a softie, and I don't care. But to make this very pointed, I don't disagree that this is not the time for blame. There's going to be plenty of blame to go around later. I think right now this is a human tragedy. It's a humanitarian catastrophe. People are losing everything they've worked their lives very hard for, and a lot of people keep seeming to harp on but they're rich, who cares? Well, I don't care about people's social economic status in the time of disaster, whether it's in Florida, Louisiana, California, New York. We got to stop trying to divide each other based on race and social economic status. That's my founding belief as a human being.
Can I ask you something then, in regards to that?
Real quick.
And I appreciate your answer. And I don't think it's soft to care about people, by the way. I think that makes you more of a man, by the way. And I think that makes you harder, not softer. If we're talking about that, if you care about people's lives and you have empathy, that's not soft, George. So I wouldn't call you that if you care about people, which I believe you do. But I want to ask you this. You said we should show empathy and we shouldn't politicize. And why is it the guy that you still support, Donald Trump, always makes it political? After the New Orleans tragedy, the first thing he did was say it was a migrant and said it was Joe Biden's open border policies. Will you publicly call that out and say that was wrong?
I already did. And look, here's how I look at it. I have this rule. If you support somebody 70% of the time, you're their supporter. If you support anybody 100% of the time, you need mental help. You need a psychiatrist. So, I mean, I don't agree wholeheartedly with every single thing President Trump has ever said or done. But in the long haul, when it matters, I think he's, been there. Now, I'm not saying that this doesn't matter, but I've learned to just kind of like mute myself out of these inflammatory conversations. These people, these are big dog fights. This is a governor of the largest economy in the country versus the incoming president that is the former president, who's also a very powerful billionaire. I've learned that my input in that conversation is null and void and has no bearing. So
Why?
Well, and I'll explain, because it's
Actions speak louder than words,
well,
right?
I think it's a big dog
whoever's
fight.
doing something.
Well, the way I look at it is it's a big dog fight. Do you know how I've been finding resolve with what's going on? I don't have look at my life is pretty public and it's an open book. Everybody knows what's going on in my life. And if you don't know, then you're not Googling hard enough. But the way I've been finding my way to help is I've been hosting spaces. I've given money where I can. I don't have a whole lot of money just to throw around, but where I can and if I can, I will give. I have given to organizations. I have helped people, direct people.
Let me interrupt here too, George. George has lifted up my story because I'm somebody who lives on Social Security disability, which is not much money, and I had to evacuate. And George not only lifted up my story and brought people to come donate to my GoFundMe to help neutralize my budget for the month.
Yeah.
But he also threw in a little. So
yeah.
And that means a lot to
George
someone like
donated and shared Steven's story.
George, I think that's great. I'm not talking about you specifically, of course. I think that's awesome. Let's talk about Elon for a minute. Hundreds of millions of dollars he donated to the Trump campaign. We know that for sure. He's already tripled that. Why isn't he donating that kind of money to help the richest man in the world, donating that kind of money to help people in California?
Well, he could make to Elon's defense, and I don't play quarterback here for anybody, like I just said, but to Elon's defense, connectivity was an issue, and you know that in a case of emergency management, connectivity is vital. And Elon did take away dozens of Cybertrucks from delivery and just mounted Starlinks on them and took the loss. And he has already put forward, if I'm not mistaken, $2 million for a local recovery fund, along with Mark Zuckerberg and a few other tech guys.
So I challenge George on this because he just spoke about $2 million that Elon Musk donated. He's the richest man in the world. He donated in upwards of $250 million to the Donald Trump campaign. Okay, Taylor Swift donated $10 million, 5 times more than Elon Musk donated. So that, to me, this is where I really start to disagree with George. And I just don't think that's a really good defense to Elon Musk.
So okay, but George, I think that's good. Okay, and I'm glad you pointed that out.
Brian, hold on. Let me finish.
Sure.
I think it's too soon, personally, right? Too soon to assess what private citizens like Elon Musk and all the other wealthy people. I think what he's done at this stage of the game, I think it's commendable, which is connectivity, a connected.
I mean, George, Elon could have at a minimum gotten his minor children and the mother of 3 of his children out of California safely.
Amen.
And we know that didn't happen.
Amen. I agree.
Look,
well, George, I'm not.
We're starting to gang up on George now. I love it.
Affairs. I didn't even know that was.
Of course.
I'm not asking you to defend.
Cushing came here specifically with questions for George Santos, so we'll just keep.
I apologize. I'm not trying to hog the space. I apologize, and I appreciate you guys. If it's not okay, let me know. I had one more question.
I can tell I'm trying to ignore.
I appreciate you, George, for answering.
Steve,
George doesn't want me to ask any more questions.
Fine, as long as you talk to Nick and Diligent about calling me.
Yeah, there was some expletives in there.
I can't stand Nick.
I've gotten into it with that guy on social media too. He's a major douchebag. But anyway, so George, one more question for you, my friend. You had to work with Nancy Mace. I don't know what your relationship is like with her. But I had to ask you, she's tweeted like literally almost 1,000 times about trans women in bathrooms. She's made money off of it. She's campaigned off of it. It just sounds to me she's mentally unstable. Then she says she hurt her arm by someone shaking her hand, and it just looks like she's out for attention. So my question to you is, what is wrong with this woman, and why is it that after a mass shooting, we're lucky if we get one tweet from her saying thoughts and prayers, but then God forbid if one of her colleagues, that's a transgender woman, goes into the bathroom, it's World War III. I think she makes Republicans look bad. I think she makes America look bad. And I think she's only out for attention, like the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Lauren Boeberts. They're not lawmakers, they're noisemakers. What are your thoughts on that?
So it's funny that you bring up Nancy Mace because I was talking about her earlier in a space. So Nancy and I don't meet eye to eye. We're not friends by the furthest stretch of the imagination. And it's not because of anything other than personal disagreements but I policy wise, there's many policies we align on really well. Her plight for defending women's spaces, although I disagree with her antics, and I voiced that very clear. I actually have been a critic from the right on her way about this with Sarah McBride. I think it's been overkill. I think there's ways to convey a message that doesn't necessarily mean posting 200 times in one singular day on social media, but just to tweet and correct the record. She hasn't personally profited because none of the Congress people are allowed to be monetized on social media, and therefore there is no profit aspect of that. Now, if she's making it as a campaign issue and she's raising money, she's no different than Democrats and Republicans alike who pick certain issues and then raise money. I mean, one can argue Democrats have raised billions on Roe v. Wade, for instance, right? So that we can't change that, right? Because that's just how politics plays. Now, as far as attention, Nancy is known to like her fair share of media attention. Now, it's also not illegal, unethical, or a crime as a politician who by nature suffers of some level and stages of megalomania, and I say that for myself as well. But some just have more advanced stages of megalomania.
But George, what do you think of like when talks about she was being sexually assaulted as a teenager, which I think we all would agree is horrible.
And it's traumatic.
Right, we agree. But do you think it's an unfair question, George, to ask her, wait a second, you support a guy who's been accused of sexual assault or rape over 25 women. Now, you might not like the question, but I still think that's a fair question. And she takes offense to that.
George Stephanopoulos has a history, though. And this is where we're going to disagree. George Stephanopoulos, in his earlier years and younger age, had a very, very defined history of literally scolding women who accused President Clinton of sexual misconduct. So
I do not, George. I don't disagree with you.
It's
right.
It's the source. It's who's asking it.
Listen, I think Bill Clinton is a rapist. I'll be honest with you. I think Bill Clinton sexually assaulted women, but I also think Donald Trump has as well. So what I'm getting from you is it's not an unfair question. You just don't like who asked it because there was a double standard with Bill Clinton. And I think if that's fair.
I think he has a history of shaming women, essentially. And I don't think he look, if you put
I think what George is trying to tell you is that he's neutral depending on the specific individual's history and action.
Pretty much.
And that's what he bases his rhetoric on.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be even keeled on the sense of, had that question come to Nancy Mace from any other person, or even from a person with a lived similar experience, maybe it wouldn't have been construed in the nature it was. But George fucking Stephanopoulos is not one to go shame women. I mean, he made a career out of that. I mean, Juanita Broadwick to Monica Lewinsky, and we can name on and on. So, I mean, it's George Stephanopoulos, right? So just putting it out there.
All right, there you go. They let me ask some questions. I did. Obviously, I would have gone much deeper into some questions. I will be honest with you. There's a lot of what he said that I don't necessarily disagree with. However, if it wasn't George Stephanopoulos that asked Nancy Mace that question, if somebody else did, I think she still would have a problem with it. I have been in talks with her media person for the last week to try to get her on the show, and they're dodging me. They did get back to me at the beginning of the week, but I think when they realize that I am not a Nancy Mace fan, and yes, I do think she's despicable, she doesn't want to be asked challenging questions like many in the MAGA world. With respect to George Santos, he was worried, I think, right from the get-go when I started asking him questions, but he did answer them, and you could make the argument there were some non-answers there as well. Apparently, he did call out Donald Trump for politicizing what happened in New Orleans. I didn't see it. Fine. What do I think about George Santos? I've been pretty clear on this. And I would say this to him if he asked me, what do you think about me? I believe George Santos got elected into office based on a number of different lies that he made. It's been proven. He lied about where he went to school. He lied about his religion. He lied about a number of different things. More serious than that is the allegedly stealing money from people that donated to his campaign for Botox, for yoga, for other issues. That's very serious. So I'm not going to sit here and say George Santos is the most credible guy, but I will say that some of the things he said I do agree with 150%. I did not know that he did not get along with Nancy Mace, that they were far from ever as friends. I did not know that. I did not know that he called out Donald Trump for what took place in New Orleans in the rhetoric. I did not know that. But I will take some volleyball lessons from George Santos. Listen, I appreciated the fact that there were a lot of nice people in that space. They treated me with respect, and that's why I treat others with respect. There were some people that were listening to that space. Why were you so nice to George? Well, because he was being nice to me. He was answering my questions, even though I might have not liked some of the answers. He was answering my questions. He was being respectful to me. And you know what? The people in the space were being nice to me as well. So, I treat people the way they treat me as a whole. That's my motto, right? If you're going to call into this program and you're going to insult me, then chances are I'm probably going to insult you back. If you're going to call into this program and say stupid things that are not true, I'm going to call you out for it. I treat people the way they treat me. This show is no different than what you just heard with George Santos. Here's what we are going to do. We are going to take a quick break, and we are going to take some phone calls on the other side. I just had a 30-minute respectful debate interview with Will Chamberlain. He is a very conservative man. He's the senior counsel for the Article 3 project, very conservative. But we had a very respectful conversation, and I think a conversation with a lot of substance on a lot of important issues. I did talk a little bit about Mel Gibson. We're taking some phone calls on that as well. And of course, that conversation I just had with George Santos, of all people. I did not know that was going to happen, by the way. I'm invited into this space, and then all of a sudden George Santos pops in. I said, oh boy, here we go. And they just let me roll with it. I mean, that was a good 15 minutes, which is very rare on a space. And there were a lot of people in that space. They gave me 15 minutes with George Santos, which I appreciated. All right, so we're going to take some phone calls on the other side. Let me all remind you, the official gaming bar of the PTL radio show is, of course, Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. So many great promotions there, including the Pass the Puck contest during Vegas Golden Knights games, where you could win up to $500 in free slot play. Great food, great atmosphere. It's a great time, and it's a legendary bar. Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. We're going to take a quick break, and we have the phone lines, which is irregular here. They're always full, my producer tells me. So we're going to get right to the calls when we come back. If it's busy, please keep trying, and we will get to as many calls as we can. We have a lot to get to, and we want to hear from you. 702-221-7283. Take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Have you ever ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at radioyou101.com.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. Getting into a political debate with George Santos was not on my bingo card this week, but we got there, and I'm glad we were able to share that with all of you. And I've been talking to George Santos personally on my X page through Messenger, and I'm trying to coax him into coming on the show where I could maybe dive deeper into some stuff with him. But you know, you gotta be gentle, right? Because George is a softie. Please check out my website, by the way, pushingthelimits.live. We're an independently run radio show. That means we rely on people like you. We accept donations on there, monthly donations. Doesn't matter what it is, $5, $10, $20. Doesn't matter what it is. And we also sell merchandise on there. Check out the website. Subscribe to my YouTube page if you're not already on there at PTL Radio Show, pushingthelimits.live. All right, we're going to get right to the phone calls now. I'm not going to waste any time. Let's start off with Al. Al is first up on PTL. Hello, Al.
Hey, Brian, thanks for taking my call. Hey, listen, didn't I hear you a couple of days ago or yesterday say that you thought Nancy Mace might be a man? Something about there was a question when they were interrogating people as how to define a woman. Didn't I hear you say something like that?
Yep, and I'll tell you exactly why I said it. Nancy Mace wants only biological women in women's restrooms. How do we police something like that? I don't know if Nancy Mace is a woman. I really don't. I haven't. Okay,
well, let me
hold on. Let me just answer. Let me just finish my answer, and then I promise you I will let you respond now, okay?
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know for sure. I'm being serious now. I don't know for sure if Nancy Mace is a woman. She probably is. I don't know her family history. I certainly haven't seen her without clothes on. I don't know. And by the way, I really don't care. But Nancy Mace seems to care so much about biologically who you are when you go into the women's restroom. So let's give her that same sort of attention. Let's find out if Nancy Mace is a woman. If that's what she wants to do, and it sounds to me that she wants to make sure that absolutely no transgenders should get into the women's restroom, let's see how women like it if there's somebody that checks them and checks their genitals every single time they walk into the women's restroom or the men's restroom for that matter. So yeah, I don't know if Nancy Mace is a woman or not. She certainly could be a man. I don't know. I know she's crazy. I know she likes attention. I know she's a liar. You can shake her hand and she'll wear an arm sling the next day. She's the kind of person that you literally get into a fender bender at the light and there's barely a dent in your car and she goes into the ICU. That's who Nancy Mace is. She's bad for the country. She's an embarrassment. And no, I have no idea. Neither do you. I don't know if she's a man or a woman. There you go. There's my answer.
Okay, well, I think that you're being a person, I think you're being Now, let me finish. I let you finish.
I didn't say a word.
I think you're being hypocritical because you say that you don't support conspiracy theories.
I don't.
And I would think that's a conspiracy theory.
So
when, in case, I just looked it up,
Al,
she has 2 biological kids.
Al, let me explain to you the difference between, and by the way, you also don't understand levity, but let me explain to you the difference between a conspiracy theory and saying, I don't know. Donald Trump said the 2020 election was stolen. Now, if Donald Trump said, I question the election, we need to investigate it, and let's get some questions answered, and I'll see you in court, that's not a conspiracy theory. Donald Trump said the election was stolen, Joe Biden cheated, look up 2,000 mules. That is a conspiracy theory. Do you understand the difference between a conspiracy theory and someone saying she could be a man? I don't know. Here's the reason why I said that, Al, and I think you're struggling to understand. She is going after a group of people. She is shaming a group of people. So you're damn right that I am intentionally shaming her. I give it back to them. She's shaming a group of people. I am shaming her. Do I really believe that Nancy Mace is a man? No, she's probably a woman. I can sit here and tell you with a straight face, I don't know for sure. I don't know. Okay? If you're claiming if you're claiming she has kids, that very well might be true. The point I was trying to make, which sadly you're missing, is that she is an imbecile and she makes ridiculous statements. So I think she deserves people to make some ridiculous statements about her. Why do you not understand that?
I just think it's very obvious that it's hypocritical. And honestly, with all due respect, as I think you're making yourself look like a fool going around thinking that she's not a woman when she is. And as a matter of fact,
Al, I have a serious question. I have a serious question for you, Al. I have a serious question. Are you a woman?
I'm a man. I'm a biologically born man,
Okay,
and I
well,
believe a woman
I would
is
question
somebody
that.
who was born
Al,
as a biological
okay,
woman.
that's fair. So,
Okay?
Al, if there's a men's room, I don't want you going in the men's room. I don't believe you. I think you're a woman.
Okay, well, I think you're an idiot. I'm sorry to tell
thank
you for saying that.
Al, Al, you should try using a penis. It's very convenient when you have to go to the bathroom. It's convenient, but I
should try using.
Yeah,
it.
Al, I don't want you. Al, I don't.
You know
Hold on,
what?
Al. I don't
You
want
know
you.
what?
I don't want you in the men's restroom, Al. I think you're a woman. I think you should drop trow and prove to everybody, including Nancy Mace, that you're a man. Al, I think you're a woman. What do you think about that, Al?
You're an idiot.
Thank you, Al. I might be an idiot, but I still think you're a woman. What do you think about that?
Yeah, okay, well, it just goes to show.
Al, are
how
you a
smart
woman?
your
Be
show
honest.
is.
Al, be honest. Do you have testicles? Be honest. Did they drop yet? It's a serious question.
I have
Al. It's a serious question. It's a serious
I'm a man, just like I was born a man. I've always been a man, and I'm very proud to be a man.
Okay, well,
and you know what?
Well, I would
think
question
Nancy
that.
Mace is a woman.
I don't
and you
think.
know what?
I
she's
don't
hot.
think. I don't think you should go.
I think she's hot.
You
I'd love
would,
to go on
Al.
a date with her.
You would, Al.
Okay?
Al, I think you're a woman. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think you're an idiot.
Okay. Well, that's
Goodbye.
fine. I'm an idiot, but I still think I'm allowed to go in the men's restroom. I don't think Nancy Mace would allow you in the men's restroom. I think she would welcome you in the woman's restroom, and you guys could play some games together. Could play some games together, Al, and she could put your makeup on for you. Thank you for the call, Al. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. You see, if people are going to be ridiculous with me, I'm just going to give it right back to them. Let's go to LeVar. LeVar is next up on PTL. What's up, LeVar?
Hey, Brian, first time caller, man. I appreciate the work you do, man. And just let me go ahead and say, look, Randy Mace is a man, okay? Everybody knows that that's Mick Jagger's male love child from America. So, Al, go ahead on and go ahead and cry yourself to sleep, Al, in the woman's room where you belong. Now, I just wanted to be one of the first brothers to call you, Brian, to first thank you for the good work you've been doing and also not sound like MAGA Herb. So, thank you for everything you do. And also, Melvin, the MAGA moron.
Yes.
Guys, if you are listening to a guy who threatened his wife to be raped by a pack of N-words, that was his.
Oh, wait a second, though. I agree with you, but I think we have Mel Gibson. Hold on a second. I want you to hang on the line with me. Do we have Donald Trump? I think we have Donald Trump on the line. Donald Trump disagrees with you, and I think he has something to say about his thoughts on what he thinks about Mel Gibson. This is Donald Trump and his opinions on what he thinks about Mel Gibson. Have a listen to this, sir.
I think Mel Gibson is a very good guy.
There you go. There you go. What do you think about that? Thank you, Mr. Trump. He thinks he's a good guy.
He would, Brian. Wouldn't he? Ain't that the same guy who thinks it's okay to take veterans pensions and take away veterans VA benefits and things like that? So of course, consider the source.
Can you imagine this, though? You're right. Can you imagine? Mel Gibson is caught on tape saying his woman deserves to be raped by a pack of N-word people. Like he said that. That's not that's somebody that Donald Trump chose to be an ambassador. You know, maybe okay, let me defend Donald Trump on one thing. If Donald Trump announced today that Mel Gibson would be the ambassador to the Klan, then I would say, well, that makes sense because Mel Gibson feels the way the Klan feels. He hates black people, minorities. He's an anti-Semite. An ambassador to the Klan. That would make sense to me. Or an ambassador to like the Proud Boys, right? An ambassador to Hollywood? Look at all the good people in Hollywood that are helping people like the Sean Penns of the world, the Steve Gutenbergs of the world, the George Clooney's that are doing everything and anything they can in their power to help people during the fires. And he thinks that Mel Gibson should be an ambassador. Oh, it's so absurd.
Last word real quick, Brian. Yeah, exactly. We're talking about a guy who sits up here. He has more money than he knows what to do with. And instead of helping the people in Hollywood, he's sitting there making lame brain conspiracy theories. Yeah. And for you idiots who want to blame the mayor and Gavin Newsom, all I'm going to say is this, guys. If they weren't out there with matches lighting the fire, let's stop looking for people to blame and start looking for people to help.
Amen, my friend. Very well said. Thank you for the call, my friend. Call back anytime. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's see. Let's go to Michael. Michael is next up on PTL. What's going on, Michael?
Hello, Brian.
Yes, sir. What's on your mind today?
Well, did you know that come Monday at noon, Air Force One officially becomes Con Air?
That's true. I haven't heard that one before. Give me my bunny. Sorry, that was a Con Air reference.
I know. But I am in deep red Oklahoma, the only state that every single county went for Donald Trump. And it sucks being a liberal here.
Yeah. Well, what's worrisome to me, let me ask you a question. What worries you the most about the next 4 years?
It's going to feel like America is stuck in a prison sentence for the next 4 years. And when Donald Trump takes full control with all these weirdos he wants to stuff his cabinet with, Pete McDrunky, for one, Brainworm Jr., we're going to be screwed.
Yeah, you are right. I think the odds that Pete Hegseth has his first drink when he's confirmed, which I hope he isn't, but I believe he is, over under, I'd give him a couple days, my friend. Con Air, I'm going to use that. I appreciate that. That's very funny. 702-221-7283, the number to call if you want to be a part of the program. Let's go to Catherine. Catherine is next. What's up, Catherine?
Hello. I was surprised that I came on so fast. Anyway, I just want to say, how can you expect anything from Donald Trump than to put Mel Gibson as an ambassador? Yeah. I mean, it's just insane. But anyway, the other thing, the point I called was Monday is the anniversary of Martin Luther King, a beautiful human being who did so much. And it's also his inauguration. And of course, he has the flags flying and disregarding Jimmy, you know. And I just wanted to say that, you know, I think that we should all remember Martin Luther King because Donald Trump, last time he was inaugurated, said he had more people coming to his inauguration than Martin Luther King. I'm a senior citizen. I remember when Martin Luther King had his I Dream speech and had people who I know go there.
Well, you know what?
Much more than
You're
Donald
right.
Trump.
So Donald Trump always shows jealousy for those, and there are many of them out there, like a Barack Obama, for example, people who have accomplished more in their lives. They're more intelligent, they're more eloquent, they beautiful families. Donald Trump has always been envious and jealous of Barack Obama, and I feel the same way when it comes to Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, Donald Trump understands. He's a very ignorant man, but he does understand what Martin Luther King accomplished for minorities in this country. And when you notice, when somebody who has lived an incredible life, whether it be a John McCain, right, whether it be a Jimmy Carter, whoever it might be, someone who served the country honorably, like both of them did, he criticizes them in the hours and days after they die. He did the same thing with Powell. Almost right after they die, he decides to criticize them when it comes to policies or things that they did in their life that he disagrees with because he's jealous of them. I guarantee you, if tomorrow Vladimir Putin had a heart attack and passed away, Donald Trump would say nothing but nice things about him. Same thing with Tulsi Gabbard, by the way, and so many in the MAGA right. If Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un died tomorrow, Donald Trump would say nothing but nice things about them. But after a Jimmy Carter passes away, or a John McCain passes away, or General Powell passes away, he criticizes them. He'll say a few nice things, and then he'll criticize them. That's who Donald Trump is. And that's the difference between a Donald Trump and a Barack Obama. Guess who spoke at John McCain's funeral? Democrats. Barack Obama. Because they respected one another. And John McCain respected the hell of Barack Obama and his family, because even though they had a lot of disagreements policy-wise, McCain knew that Barack Obama was a decent man who had no hatred in his heart, and that's why McCain chose Barack Obama to speak. Who's going to be speaking at Donald Trump's funeral whenever that happens? The Klan? David Duke? You think Melania Trump would speak? Of course not.
I thank you. And he didn't even put his hand on his heart when Jimmy Carter's casket passed.
Because I'm not sure he has a beating heart. I think that's why. I think Donald Trump was going to put his hand over his crotch. I don't know. I don't think he think that's where his heart is. Thank you for the call, my dear. I appreciate you. Yeah, where's he going to put his hand? Put his hand. You know what Donald Trump should do? He should put his hand over his mouth 24/7. That's what he should do. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Vivian. Vivian is next. What's up, Vivian?
Hi, Brian. How you doing today?
Good. What's on your mind?
I guess it has to do mostly with the guests that you have, because they just seem to just lie, evade whatever excuse, or they say they don't know about something when you bring something to their attention. And I just find it very annoying that, like, you sit here and you listen and you listen and you say to yourself, why are they lying? Why are they not? Just say the truth. That's all you have to say. The evasiveness is just out of control. And
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with what you're saying, Vivian. I have a question for you.
How are we going to come together as a country? I don't understand.
I agree. And what I'm about to say, probably the question I'm about to ask probably won't have MAGA Republicans and Democrats come together, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's a radio show and I think it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
We all have our judgment day. I'm not saying I want anything like that to happen to Donald Trump, but I am going to pose this question. If and when Donald Trump does pass away, who do you think would be the first person to speak at his funeral?
Lucifer?
That's possible. I was going to say the Antichrist, but I think we're close there. Thank you for the phone call, Vivian. I appreciate you. I'm going to ask that question to everybody today. I'm not saying I want it to happen. I don't want to get hate mail. Well, I'll get it anyway. We all have our judgment day. Who do you think is the person or persons that will speak on Judgment Day on Donald Trump's funeral? 702-221-7283. Let's go to Paul. Paul is next up on PTL. What's up, Paul?
Oh, hey, real quick, before I say something, I'm going to say, Al, every time she calls in, she's a breath of fresh air whenever Al calls in. Al, many people have told me, lots of people, Al, great people have told me that you're actually not a U.S. citizen. That's what I heard. That you don't really have 2 kids and that your birth certificate's fake. You see how stupid that sounds, Al?
Yeah, geez, I wonder who says that. Trump didn't say that stuff. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Hey, there was I don't know if you heard about this in California, but there was another conspiracy theory that fire trucks coming from Oregon and Idaho weren't allowed in because they had to pass emissions by the.
That's a lie.
Did you hear about that?
Yeah, that's a complete another lie.
I know it's a lie.
But hold on. But Paul.
Yep.
According to Elon Musk, they are the media.
God.
They are the media now. They're the media, according to Elon Musk. By the way, $44 billion company ran it into the ground. It's now worth $10 billion. Just wanted to add that.
Out of all the disgraces in the hearings, I think that Joni Ernst, out of everybody, is probably the most feckless. She was a victim of sexual assault, sadly. She served in our military, and she overlooked all of that to put Pete Hegseth as the cabinet.
She looked for an excuse. Well, if he changes his position on this, then he's got my vote. She was looking for an excuse. She knew all along that she was going to confirm Pete Hegseth, but she was looking for an out. Oh, well, he changed his position on this, and I'm a champion for that. That's why he changed his position when she knew she was pressured and probably threatened by Donald Trump and his cronies to confirm Pete Hegseth. This is the Republican Party today.
I'm trying to get, listening to Joe Biden last night, I kind of didn't want to because I know he's leaving. It felt like that was normalcy. Like, I really liked what he had to say. I thought it was an incredible speech. And I can just hear people complaining and moaning and groaning. It's like, it just, I don't know how this country comes back together after. There's so much lies out there. There's so much misinformation. I just don't know. It saddens my heart. I mean, I have family that are radicalized by this. I know a lot of people that have been radicalized. Paul, let's do a little role playing. Not that kind of role playing. Let's get our head out of the gutter here. Oh. Let's pretend that you are the manager at McDonald's, and Brian Shapiro. Okay. Brian Shapiro walks into McDonald's, also known as Pete Hegseth, and you're interviewing me. Go ahead. Ask me a relevant question why I should be flipping burgers, and then I'll give you an appropriate answer. Go ahead. Oh, are you black?
I will take off my shirt, sir, and I will show you my tattoo, and it says 100% white. Sir Paul, if you hire me, I promise you I will not drink in between flipping burgers. I promise you I will not have a beer in between getting you those fries. And I promise you, when I use the restroom, I won't be sneaking any alcohol or shots into the restroom as well, sir. Am I hired?
Sorry. You're not, sir. I have to check off my DEI hires for the day. You don't fit that box. Sorry, sir. You know you're qualified. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll show you my 100%. I'll show you my 100. By the way, he does have that tattoo. It says 100% white. That's not weird at all. That's not weird.
Can I ask you one more quick question?
Yeah.
I'm starting to see CNN and I don't watch it anymore at all. Mm-hmm. They're really turning into Fox News. They're having who's the guy on Shark Tank, the bald guy that's got a big mouth?
That guy O'Leary's the worst. He is the worst. I played some audio from him yesterday. I don't care how much money he has. He wears the Donald Trump knee pads 24/7. He's just as bad as Scott Jennings. I mean, those two are just imbeciles, right? They're imbeciles. Here's a billionaire who thinks he can, talk down to anybody. He has all the answers to everything. When he talks politics, the guy sounds like an idiot. A complete idiot. I don't care how much money he has.
They can't believe that MAGA are going to turn on CNN, so I don't understand what the play is. Why are they going in such a nutty direction?
Without mentioning names, I've talked to some very prominent people that used to work at CNN, multiple people that I speak with, some who have even done this show, and many of them tell me the same thing. It's run by MAGA supporters. They think they want to get the MAGAs back into play. There's going to be more firings that are going to be coming. I find it very difficult these days to watch CNN. The only people that I watch on a regular basis on CNN is Jake Tapper, because even though some people have some criticisms of Jake Tapper, I do think he's still a very good journalist. I think at times Caitlin Collins does the best she can to challenge these MAGA Republicans, but it's very difficult for me to watch CNN. And I agree with you. Paul, thank you so much for the call, man. Good to hear from you. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Lou. Lou is next up on PTL. Hello, Lou.
Hey, Brian. Hey, I just wanted to give my props to Paul. I think he's a real good caller. I've been listening now for the last few months, and the dude is knowledgeable and all that stuff. So I want to give my props to Paul. I have a theory on why some Democrats play nice during these hearings to these unqualified nominees. Maybe they do not want to be put in the spotlight for a possible investigation, such as, say, insider trading or receiving favorable low-interest loans from institutions that donate to their campaign. What do you think?
Come again with that question? You cut out a little there. Ask it one more time.
Yeah, I have a theory on why some of these Democrats in Congress during these hearings play nice with these unqualified nominees. Maybe some of the Democrats do not want to be put in the spotlight because they may or may not have something to hide for a possible investigation, like possible insider trading
I don't know the answer to that, but here's what I will say in general terms. I'm very disappointed with the way the Democrats have handled these hearings. Not all of them. I am too. Not all of them, but so many of them are wussies. They need to toughen up. They need to be stronger. They need to be like some of the Eric Swalwells. They need to be like the Dan Goldens. They need to be tougher and stronger, like the Moskowitzes. They need to be stronger, and they're not. I thought Adam Schiff's performance yesterday, by the way, he fell asleep during the hearings at one point yesterday. Adam Schiff was an embarrassment yesterday, and he was a softie. And I thought so many of the other Democrats could have pushed harder, and they didn't do so because they are not strong. They are weak. We need. Can you imagine if AOC was up there? Can you imagine AOC questioning Bondi? Can you imagine if we had that type of person up there doing that? It would have gone down very different. Yeah.
She won't play any games.
Right.
And like the congresswoman from Texas, Jasmine Crockett. She doesn't play games either.
Crockett, I think, is phenomenal. Okay. I want those types of people. I understand there are people in Congress, but I understand that. But I want these kinds of people to be in the Democrat Party, stronger people with stronger, louder voices. I'm not saying be a nitwit like Marjorie Taylor Greene, okay? And let me be very clear. Jasmine Crockett, I think she's a very intelligent person, and she's helped pass some very important bills. Same thing with AOC. I think they're very intelligent, strong women. And I don't care whether you're a woman or a man, like Nancy Mace, she obsesses over this stuff. I was very disappointed as a whole, the way Democrats, I would say, I thought Kane did a good job, but I would say, wait a second.
Yeah.
Miss Bondi, you're not willing to say, with no evidence of widespread voter fraud right now in front of the American people, that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election? She would give the same stupid answer. And I would say, you want to be the attorney general and you won't answer who won the 2020. I would say, Miss Bondi, you only care about one listener today. You don't care about the American people. You don't care about democracy. I would have held her feet to the fire.
She's going to be a puppet for Trump.
Exactly. But they should have. Did you see the way Booker asked her questions? It was an embarrassment. It was like they were dating yesterday. I'm so disappointed in so many of these Democrats and in these hearings. They need to toughen up. Get Nancy Pelosi out of there. Get Chuck Schumer out of there.
I'm looking for a T-shirt that says Nancy Mace is a man.
You know what? I would wear it. I would
would too.
If people want to disrespect, thank you for the call, sir. If people like Nancy Mace want to disrespect the transgender community, I think Nancy Mace should have a, what would we call it? A crotch check every time she goes into a female bathroom. Is that what she wants? Oh, well, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Well, let's see how uncomfortable you feel when somebody checks your private parts before you go into a restroom, because it sounds like that's the direction you want it to go to. I think every single time Nancy Mace goes into a woman's restroom, there should be a security personnel there checking to see if she's a woman. If that's what the country she wants to live in, then have at it. Drop your trowel or dress or whatever it is you wear. 702-221-7283, as somebody said on social media. Cup check. Nancy Mace, cup check, aisle 4. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to join the conversation. Let's go to Carl. What's up, Carl?
Hey, buddy. Listen, your first guest, I was going to say something about your first guest. He was talking about Mel Gibson and making a ambassador to Hollywood and how when he gets drunk, he gets violent. Well, let me explain something about the subconscious to you. Everybody has a wall built up in their brain, in their subconscious. And when they want to tell a lie, that wall stays there and they tell a lie, even though they think just the opposite. But when you get drunk or take too much alcohol, that wall collapses and you say what you really think.
Yeah.
And that's what Mel Gibson does when he's drunk.
Agreed.
He really feels that way.
And I echoed that, Carl. Earlier in the show, I said, when you're drunk, your real thoughts come out. Now, some people are happy drunks. They're loving people. Maybe they get a little huggy, feely with their friends, but that means they're caring people. I don't know. And then you get people like Mel Gibson who are angry drunks, who are racist bigots. Carl, you're absolutely right. I've said that about people who are drunk for a long time.
But that's their real thoughts and feelings.
But he's a great person.
They can hide.
But Trump says he's a great person, and he's representing Hollywood. He's the ambassador.
Well, Trump's the same mold, so it's different. He's got that wall too.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you, Carl. I appreciate the call, my friend. Thank you. 702-221-7283. What does Donald Trump think about Mel Gibson? I'm just curious. What does he think?
I think Mel Gibson is a very good guy.
Yeah, great guy. Calls people the N-word, anti-Semitic. a woman abuser, just like Donald Trump. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Ray. Ray is next up on PTL. Hey, Ray, what's going on?
I want to get back to you with something a couple days ago with that piece of garbage, Ed, that puts women down and says they should stay home. He wouldn't even have the guts to say what he did. I am a retired union plumber that taught women in the apprenticeship program, and they've turned out to be journeymen. Women do not need to stay home like this ass butt says. Number two, if you want more crap on Getz, I live in the county that he represented. I got newspaper clippings. I'll mail them to you if you want me to.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think what you were referring to, if I'm not mistaken, is a phone call we had a couple days ago of a horrific phone call of a MAGA supporter who basically used all the stereotypes that women should be stayed at home and they should be cooking. And
that's true.
Unfortunately, a lot of this stuff is coming from the far right. You don't hear a lot of liberals or Democrats saying that women belong in the kitchen. Why is it you hear that from the far right? You're absolutely right, sir. I appreciate your call. Thank you. You can send me those materials. Let's go to Yvonne. Yvonne is next up on PTL. Hello, Yvonne. What's going on?
Hi, Brian. I just started watching you in the past month or so.
Oh, my apologies. My apologies. I'm so sorry.
No, I've been. You make me laugh.
Well, that's
I'm
a good
calling
thing.
from Canada.
Oh.
And I have an advice for this Nancy May person.
Nancy Mace.
Why don't you suggest to get all the bathrooms co-ed instead? Then you don't have to worry about who's entering the bathroom, and you make the stalls completely closed.
I want Nancy Mace to be in my stall when I'm going number 2. That's what I want. That's what I want. I want her to stare right into my eyes and tell me that I'm a man and she's a woman, and I want to hear that lecture while I'm going to the restroom. And maybe, hopefully, I can flush her down the toilet as well. But she's despicable.
Yes. The thing that bothers me is, it bothers me. It scares me. Why are you afraid? A person who's transgender.
But here's the thing.
Really
Can I answer that? I don't think she's afraid at all. I think she's just a bigot. I think it's a couple things. Number one, most importantly, she wants to make the name for herself, and sadly, it's worked within those on the far right, getting campaign contributions, money, and making a name for herself and getting clicks. That's her number one priority. Number two,
wasn't that what Crockett said?
Yeah, and Crockett's 150%. I agree with everything Jasmine Crockett said. Number two,
she's awesome.
Nancy Mace wouldn't last 5 seconds with Crockett. Crockett would beat the hell out of her. That's number two. And number three, and maybe most important, Nancy Mace is a bigot. She's a liar and she's a bigot. She says she's pro-LGBT. She's not pro anything except what benefits her. So I say it before and I say it again. Every single time Nancy Mace goes into a female restroom, I want a cup check. Okay, that's what I want.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want a Nancy Mace cup check. Thank you for the phone call. I appreciate it. By the way, I meant that. If I'm in the restroom and we have co-ed restrooms, I want Nancy Mace watching me go poo-poo. 702-221. And by the way, that's not a fetish. I don't want to get any weird emails or anything. It's not something weird. I want Nancy Mace to go through torture, and I would imagine that would be torturous for anybody to want to see. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Lynn. I believe Lynn is next on PTL. What's up, Lynn?
Hey, just 2 points. Nancy Mace, her going to the bathroom or trans people, have her go with a trans man. I guarantee she'll be super uncomfortable.
Yeah. You want to talk about uncomfortable? Do you remember, Lynn, when she showed up to a church for an event and she showed up late and she publicly told people the reason why she was late is because she had sex with her husband? What's more uncomfortable? Making a statement like that at church because you're late, or going to the restroom and maybe somebody in the restroom is transgender? I would argue her statements makes people feel far more uncomfortable.
Both make me uncomfortable, but yeah, sure.
Mace.
I'm sorry, my teenager son is here, so sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Nancy Mace, the disgrace. That's what I've been calling her for a long period of time. She is a despicable human being, and sadly, the MAGA Republican Party seemed to latch on to people like Nancy Mace, They latch on to people like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and if you kiss Donald Trump's ass enough, he will pander to you as well.
Yeah. And point number 2, I would just like to point, most of the callers that come in, other than guests, are all men.
I do get a lot of female callers, too.
I guess I miss them. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I would say, I think one could argue half my callers are women. Numchuck, can you back me up on that one? Yes, he's shaking his head. I would say half the callers are women, and I'm very proud of that, by the way. If Nancy Mace calls in, I don't know which side I would put her on, so I'll let you guys decide for yourself. Maybe we can do a guest cup check on the show. 702-221-7283. Who are we going to? We're going to Pam. Pam is next on PTL. What's up, Pam?
Hi, Brian.
Hey, Pam, what's on your mind?
All the people that he's appointing to the office, it's all theatrics. They're going to get in regardless. What we need to focus on now is Garland needs to drop the Mar-a-Lago case. If he drops it, then it can be released and the whole public can see it, read it, and know all about it prior to him taking office on the 20th. NATO's been meeting all week long.
Yeah.
They're already preparing for Donald Trump and his shenanigans.
Yeah.
We need to get the case dropped so that they will release it. Because, once he gets into office, the charges will be dropped against those last two anyway.
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest disappointment in Joe Biden's administration, the biggest disappointment is Merrick Garland. He's been so awful, such an embarrassment. But I do agree with you. We do need that to become public. The Jack Smith report, we saw some of it, not all of it. Exactly what I thought we would see, extremely damning. And I don't disagree with your assessment there. When it comes to Merrick Garland, what an embarrassment he has been. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Dave. Dave is next up on PTL. Dave hung up? Okay, let's go to Vino. Vino is next up on PTL. What's up, Vino?
Hey, Ryan. Love your show.
Thank you.
I caught your earlier guest today, and I understand why you give them a platform, but he was all over the place. I mean, I look on his Twitter
account.
account.
Hold on. I had two guests today, so I just want to clarify.
Will Chamberlain.
We had Will Chamberlain from Article 3 Project and George Santos, who I spoke with. Okay, so you're talking about Chamberlain.
And honestly, I wasn't a fan of George Santos, but at least he seemed human during that interview.
He was. He was. Yep, I agree.
That was insightful. But I'm talking about Will. He was all over the place. I mean, he talks about. I mean, you look at his Twitter account, and Google Hunter Biden, and he's critical of him. Yet he will sit there and minimize Pete Hegseth, his violence and his past.
Well, I called him out. I agree with you. So I called him out on this. Right? He brought up Kamala Harris's husband.
Yeah,
we're talking about Pete Hegseth, and I said, wait a second. Her husband isn't running for a spot in an administration. He's not going to have the nuclear codes, right? I mean, I thought that was a really weird. I thought that was a really weird thing that he. Obviously, I disagree with Will on a lot. Yeah, correct. That's the word I would use. It's definitely a diversion for sure.
And then when you talked about Nancy Mace, and then he talks about being a champion for women and how far women have come to this country, yet he minimizes Pete Hegseth's behavior towards women. And I'll
never minimize it. And it's so interesting, right? When I talk about Pete Hegseth or Donald Trump, they always want to bring up Bill Clinton. I don't defend Bill Clinton. I thought what he did. Now, if you want to talk about policy, I thought policy-wise he was a very good president. But personally, I don't think Bill Clinton is a good man. I met him a few months ago. I shook his hand. Thank you, Mr. President. Got a picture with him. Okay, he's a former president, but Bill Clinton, I believe, did some very bad things to women. I wouldn't vote for him if he, I know he's like 100 years old now, but it's like, why do they always do whataboutism? I try to be fair with people. Yeah. Pete Hegseth, I'm going by his own mother's words, is a woman abuser. I believe his mom, who, by the way, didn't retract what she said on Fox News. All she said was, he's a different man now. He found Jesus. And as I said to Will Chamberlain, with these MAGA Republicans, when you pin them in a corner on horrific behavior, they turn to God and Jesus. Well, guess what? I think
except Hunter Biden.
Yeah, exactly.
Hunter Biden can't do that.
I think if you ask Jesus, he would say Pete Hegseth is an a-hole. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. I spoke to Jesus this morning. You know what Jesus told me this morning? I woke up. Really, Jesus was talking to me. He said, Brian, good luck on your show today with those MAGAs. And Jesus Christ came down and he told me that Pete Hegseth is a womanizer and an abuser. I don't support his behavior, and I don't support Cheeto. Just don't use the word Jesus. I said, okay, Jesus, fine. I won't call him that word. I'll call him the orange orangutan. Me and Jesus had a great conversation this morning, and he also said Marjorie Taylor Greene wasn't his type. So, yeah.
Amen.
I speak.
But that's one of the differences between MAGA and I'm a Democrat. I'm not a Bill Clinton fan because I believe the highest office in the country, the standard is higher than your common citizen.
I agree.
Like you said, Clinton's policies were good for the country, but I despise Bill Clinton, and I can say that because of his ethical behaviors.
Agree.
And the MAGA can't do that.
No.
That's the boundary. That's the separation.
Yeah, but they'll hide behind.
It's a cult.
They'll
it's
hide
truly
behind.
a cult.
It is a cult. Their Jesus is Donald Trump, right? I promised Jesus I wouldn't say that today, but thank you so much for the phone call. Yeah, it's funny. They have their conversations with God and Jesus. Well, guess what? So do I. Yes, that's right. God told me today that if you voted for Donald Trump, you've made a very big mistake. He told me that today. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. We'll take a quick break. We'll take some more phone calls on the other side. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at RadioYOU101.com.
All right, welcome back. Final segment of Pushing the Limits on a Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about, and in D.C., questioning a guy who another one who's going to be in charge of policy, particularly when it comes to minimum wage. Bernie Sanders, do you plan on raising the minimum wage over $7.25 an hour to a livable wage? The answer is no. All these Donald Trump appointees, they're all for the top 1% and the extreme wealthy. They're not for middle class. They're not those that are struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. You're voting against your own interest. If you're living paycheck to paycheck and you voted for Donald Trump, you're just not smart enough to understand that. Number to call is 702-221-7283. We've had a few interesting guests. I played my conversation with George Santos. We played that today. Will Chamberlain from Article 3 Project, a staunch conservative. We played that conversation today. Donald Trump saying Mel Gibson's a great guy.
I think Mel Gibson is a very good guy.
Very good guy. Maybe not a great guy, but a very good guy. Again, Mel Gibson, the guy who pled no contest to physically assaulting the mother of his child, used the N-word, caught on tape, just saying some horrible things about people of the Jewish faith. And, of course, Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi's testimony, which I also thought was a complete joke. Again, that number, 702-221-7283. That's 702-221-SAVE. Let's go to Jack. Jack is next up on PTL. What's up, Jack?
Hey, Brian. What's going on, man? Hey, these confirmation hearings, man, what are they really for? Like, the woman, she completely perjured herself, Pam Bondi. She's claiming that she didn't hear the conversation between Trump and Brad Raffensperger asking for 11,780 votes. Have you heard that conversation?
How is it possible that Pam Bondi...
Did you hear it?
Yes.
Did you? I'm saying, okay. Did Nunchuck hear it?
Yeah, we all heard it. We all heard it.
Drop a one in the chat if you heard it. But I'm supposed she's his lawyer, Brian, during the impeachment hearings. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's so easily provable. She would have had to have listened to these things.
Of course she did.
It's unbelievable.
Listen,
with a straight face, she said, "I didn't hear it," and but she said that he didn't say it based on things that people told her. Are you? I mean, how do you get away with that?
Well, the Democrats should have pushed her on it. Her response, correct me if I'm mistaken, but her response to a lot of the questions were, "I'm not familiar with that statement." Well, what do you mean you're not familiar with it? I just read it verbatim. That's what I would have said to her. These Democrats were not tough enough. She wouldn't answer direct questions. She wouldn't even answer who won the 2020 election. She wouldn't answer questions about pardoning January 6th insurrectionists. She wouldn't answer to maybe a hit list is the wrong word, but an enemy list of Kash Patel. She's unaware of that. This is not a stupid woman. Okay. She knows, and she's heard all of this stuff. She lied yesterday.
Right. I mean, as a lawyer, this is what she's, we're putting her in charge of that. And she's the attorney general, and she's going to say she has an opinion on it. She's going to tell you what she thinks by what she's telling you is someone told her that he didn't say that. They're like, you didn't listen to it? You didn't, it's just insane that she got away with that and they didn't hold her. I would have just stayed on that until she cracked.
Listen,
there's no way she didn't listen to it.
I'm not a Brett Kavanaugh guy, but I will say this, the accuser, and I'm kind of making the reference not necessarily to Bondi, but to Pete Hegseth, had the chance to answer questions, at least. Now, I can't stand Brett Kavanaugh. I think he's a douchebag, but at least the world got to hear from the alleged victim. Pete Hegseth said that he's an open book and he's transparent. No, you're not. You've signed these women to NDAs. They're not allowed to speak. He's the opposite of transparent. He's a liar. Yes, I believe at some point in his life, he did some very inappropriate things with numerous women in his life. Yes, I believe he has a drinking problem. Yes, I believe he's a white supremacist sympathizer. What a weirdo, too. Do you know anybody, Jack, in your life that's white, that has a tattoo that says 100% white? What the hell does that mean?
Absolutely not. And Brian, he's passing it off on it's Christian. Like everything's Christian. He's saying, oh well, I did all this. I slept with my first wife. I slept around with the second wife. I slept with the second wife, with the third wife, and now I have the blood of Jesus. Like that's what they do every time. They should have not let him get away with him sitting there saying, oh, these are rumors and conjecture. Okay, well, was the allegation true? Because he's trying to say these are just attacks on him or whatever. Okay, well, you're telling me the attack was made on you, but was the allegation true? Because he wouldn't answer. Like these people, and you should be able to pick not just the people that are on these committees. You're right; they should have. Ocasio-Cortez come in, or someone else. They should be able to pick the people that come in.
Yeah, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris would do a great job. Yeah.
Some hard hitter. You bring Jamie Raskin in there and you bring Dan Goldman in there, they ain't walking out alive. You're walking out with answers at least, or they're looking like fools.
I agree.
Like, I don't agree that they should just have these people that are on the committees. I'd bring your best lawyer types in there that are going to hold their feet to the fire.
Think about this for a moment, Jack. The person who is going to have the nuclear codes, there's only two people, the president and the Secretary of Defense. The guy who's going to have the nuclear codes is the guy who has the judgment of a 2-year-old. Actually, that's probably offensive to 2-year-olds. The guy who decides to not only cheat on multiple wives, but cheat on his third or second wife with a Fox News coworker and have a unprotected sex with her and have a child with her. This is the guy who's going to have the nuclear codes, who was accused of sexual assault. The guy that's going to have the nuclear codes is the guy who has a 100% white tattoo on his body, which I'm sure has nothing to do with white supremacy. This is the guy that is going to have the nuclear codes. I mean, if that doesn't bother you, I don't know what does.
A blackout drunk on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't add the white supremacist to it at the end, but you covered that.
Isn't it interesting that they'll go after Hunter Biden for the substance abuse issues that he has? By the way, he's admitted to that, and he's sought help, and he's cleaned up. Pete Hegseth has never owned up to anything. You have all these people that have been around him, some of whom are on the record. All these people, some of whom that have worked with him, they all come up with these stories about that they had to carry him out of bars, right? And it's all a smear campaign. It's all not true. We're supposed to be led to believe that they're all lies. It's all not true.
Anonymous smears. That's all he kept saying. Anonymous smears.
Right. They're not anonymous. His mother's not anonymous.
We have names right here. Like, we have names. So is the smear? Was that made up, or was the allegation that you did that made up? Which one? You can't have both. You can't say that it's anonymous when we have the person's name.
Is his mother anonymous?
Right. They got him a little bit at the end, and time was running out, I guess, on that. But
well, I'm very disappointed in the Democrats. I think they could have done a better job. I thought some were better than others, but I agree. And the Democrats need to toughen up, man. When are the Democrats going to toughen up? 702-221-7283. When are the Democrats going to toughen up? You got to stop playing nice with these MAGA Republicans, okay? Stop. Playing nice didn't work. When they go low, we go high didn't work. We're not going back didn't work, did it? That didn't work. All due respect to Kamala Harris. That didn't work. You have to be willing to get in the mud with them. I'm not saying you have to be Donald Trump. I'm not saying you have to lie. I'm not saying you have to attack people because of what they look like. I would never call for that. But you have to be willing to go low. Mr. Pete Hegseth, is it true you cheated on your first wife with your second wife wife with your third wife having a child with a Fox News executive? Mr. Hegseth, is that true? Yes or no? Mr. Hegseth, is it true that you have a tattoo on your body that says 100% white? Could you please explain that? Mr. Hegseth, is that true? Mr. Hegseth, all these people that are claiming that you have a drinking problem, people that you've worked with, people that say they had to carry you out of bars, are they all lying as well? Are these all made up, fabricated lies? Mr. Hegseth, if you say that your life is an open book, then why are you signing these women to NDAs? Miss Bondi, if you say that you're transparent, why won't you say the 2020 election was not stolen? Miss Bondi, what do you think about January 6th? Miss Bondi, there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud. That's already been established. Donald Trump had every right in court to fight that. He lost. Why won't you say the election was not stolen? Do you think the media is the enemy from within? Do you think we should go after media entities? Why is it that when Donald Trump makes a statement on the record, you don't seem to recall it, but you seem to remember everything that Democrats say? I would destroy these people because they have no credibility, and it'd be so easy. Any basic 101 type prosecutor like a Kamala Harris would destroy these people. The Democrats were weak yesterday. They were weak with Pete Hegseth, and I've had it. Toughen up. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Pat. Hi, Pat. What's going on?
Hey, Brian. Just listening. I'm still enjoying your show.
Thank you.
But I'm thinking about these, the thing where they have to go before. Aren't these like interviews for a job? When they go before the congressman and they have to be questioned and all that. Imagine going to an interview and you talk to the people like that. Answer those, how nasty they answer the Democrats.
Yeah. I agree.
It's like a job interview, but I think they know they're already going to get the job, so they don't even care.
Let's do this again. This was fun before. Let's do some. Pretend like I'm Pete Hegseth and you're asking me questions and you're a Democrat. Go ahead.
Okay. Pete Hegseth. Let me see.
I'm gonna be Pete Hegseth, so you can ask me anything you want.
Okay. Okay. So I'm saying it's just like an interview.
Yep.
Okay. So what kind of experience have you had to what you're applying for, the position that you're applying for?
You know, I was a weekend anchor at Fox News. I served this country honorably, and I'm a man of God, and I talk to Jesus every day, and Jesus told me this is what I need to do, and I'm going to do this, and I care about our Constitution.
And that has nothing to do with your job.
Well, I live my life through God and Jesus and my Trump Bible. So, you know, I listen to what God tells me what to say. Look at my beautiful wife who's sitting right behind me and my beautiful 3-year-old daughter who's sitting right behind me. That means the most to me.
Okay, so why don't you go be a pastor?
Well, Donald Trump asked me to do this, and I'm serving my country, and this is what I want to do for my country. Donald Trump called me up, and he said, I want you to be the Secretary of Defense, and I want to do this for my country.
Oh, my God.
I'm just telling you, that's the way he would answer. I'm telling you, it's so easy. That's exactly the way he would answer.
Yeah, and the way the lady was answering to Crockett, Oh, she was so nasty. Don't call me child and all, just nasty.
Well, Crockett
and
is
she
right.
wasn't even calling her child.
Yeah, why don't you? She's such a tough lady. Why don't you step outside with Jasmine Crockett? Let's see how that ends for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, they'll be calling for an ambulance before the fight even starts, and it's not going to be because Crockett's going to be in that ambulance. Trust me. The lady, you can shake her hand, and she's going to put an arm sling on the next day. If she has a hangnail, she'll go to the ER. You want to talk about snowflake? Right. Look up the word snowflake in the dictionary, and you'll see a picture of Mr. Nancy Mace in there. Thank you for Thank you for the call, my dear. It is ridiculous. Thank you for the call, my dear. We got to do more of this role-playing stuff on here. Getting inside the mind of a bigot alcoholic, also called Pete Hegseth. It's not hard to do, ladies and gentlemen. It's not hard to do. Also something that's not hard to do. Check out my website, pushingthelimits.live. You see how I made that segue? Because I'm a professional radio broadcaster. Check out my website, pushingthelimits.live, where you can buy merchandise up there. We're an independently owned radio show, pushingthelimits.live. Also, you can make donations on there. Doesn't matter what it is. We got some donations yesterday. We appreciate your support. $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, powered through PayPal. Check it out, pushingthelimits.live. And we certainly appreciate your support. And speaking of support, also, we want you to check out the official gaming bar of the PTL radio show. It's Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Great chances to win free slot play, including the Pass the Puck contest during Vegas Golden Knights games, where you could win up to $500 in free slot play. They're giving out free bottles of wine. They're giving out free slot play galore. Check them out for more details. Tell them that I sent you. It will be a great meal. It's a great atmosphere, and I love Jackson's Bar and Grill. Please check them out. Okay. Another fun show lined up for you tomorrow. Who will I get in a space next? I was in a space with Judge Joe Brown the other day. I can't even play it because he was swearing at me. Every other word was a swear. I don't even think there's a way we can play that. But anyway, as long as they keep allowing me in these spaces, I'll continue to be there asking the tough questions. Sign up for my YouTube page at PTL Radio Show. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks to Nubchuck. We'll see you tomorrow on the show, everybody. Have a great day.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie?